Hey everybody, welcome back. We are X's for show, and we are here to talk about something near and dear to our hearts. I am Nico, and you guys can check me out at Nico Action, NicoAction.
And I'm TK. You can find me at TK Elemental.
Which makes me your producer, Kevo. You can find me at Kevo Really. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that we know what you want us to cover in the future. But today, we've put a lot of work into being prepared for this mid-season finale, and we are psyched. Thank you, Andrew. I like making cute intros for us. You can check out Nico's version of this Cozy in the Rockets. I think it's on your SoundCloud, and if not, we'll make sure to put it up soon.
We will get it there. So yeah, it's time to talk Grey's Anatomy. I got a lot of feels. I got a lot of fucking feels. Okay, so for those who don't know, TK has always been a Grey's fan since
From the 2005 premiere in my sophomore year dorm room.
And Kevo and I marathoned the whole series in 6 months, having had some amount of experience with it before. So when I say, and we watched all of it.
Yes.
We watched
The entire Grey's verse.
We watched 646 episodes plus now the 8 of this new season. So 654 episodes since June. Worth it.
I want to be 100% clear because I said this to Nico, and I just want it on the record for all you audience members here. I never even suggested they watch it. I emphatically told them not to. I am very glad that they have and that I have them to talk about it with. But I want to be super clear that I specifically was like, don't do it. It's not... I actually did not anticipate you guys would like it this much. I sort of kind of thought Kevo might. But Nico, I did not anticipate that you would like it this much.
Well, that's crazy because I'm a soap king. I am ultimate soap king, and so
there's a lot of stuff about Grey's that is so wrong, though.
Well, I mean, that's part of where I am really excited about this episode because, like, what I loved about this episode was so great, but like, what I'm still frustrated about. There are some things that I don't know how we're still dealing with. Like, I feel like we're still dealing with Richard kind of walking in and out of rooms going, "Oh, I'm needed here. Oh, no, I'm not. Goodbye." And then walking back out of the room.
When he showed up in... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the other thing I'm really loving is Dr. Cuckwell, played by Sophia Bush. She is here to make sure that Owen cannot function sexually properly ever again.
Yeah. It's such a wild story. First, I wanted to say, I even remarked when they were doing the opening scene and Teddy was briefing everyone, I was like, oh, look at Richard in scrubs showing up like he's going to be helpful today. Is it going to be one of those stories where he accidentally hands a civilian a scalpel, or is it just... You never know with his story anymore, especially when Catherine went nowhere. But I kept this on screen because, obviously, this is front and center. This would be front and center for us if it was not Sophia Bush. If this was just a hilarious thing that they were doing to Teddy, the next thing. But no, the fact that it is the gorgeous and incomparable scratchy-voiced Sophia Bush adds so much to it.
TK, that background looks so right for you. I keep thinking you're there.
I know. That's where I'm supposed to be. I have no medical training whatsoever, but I just know that they need me. I would be the social media marketing person that was like, what's really going to get this hospital some good press is if you do a live wall behind reception. And I really suggested they pay a lot for it so we could take some good TikToks in front of it.
Or maybe I would love that story.
It just gets somebody sued.
Sister.
What's that?
Maybe you're Jonah Hill's sister.
No, I know. Beanie Feldstein. You're Beanie Feldstein if you're a civilian. But
when she's standing in the operating room and Richard's like, make the incision. And she's like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That does track. That would be me. What else could I be doing at this? I could definitely work in the cafeteria. My lovely, amazing partner could be a chaplain there, and then I just show up from time to time, especially now that the chaplain position is open.
Bummer
Filled sauce.
For the first time, and now immediately open again. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Grace. That was weird.
what a pullout king. That was filled and then empty again in a second. I was disappointed. First of all, we should be so lucky that the hospital chaplain is as gorgeous as your partner. He's a very handsome man, but this was the scraggly hair gay couple that I was not ready for.
There was the vibe was always super off between Levi and Nico.
No, it was beautiful.
No, it was really off.
They were really handsome, and we wanted it to work, but unfortunately, I think TK is more correct. Even Nico's ultimate outro of "I ended up with a guy, now I've got a kid, bye." So weird.
It would have been really cool because, and then like this was kind of like the Han Callie storyline, but just the idea that they like kind of gravitated towards each other as the only gay people in the hospital. Something that like comes up from time to time but never gets fully like looked in the face is the idea that like they're just there 24/7, so they fuck each other because like there's nobody else and they can't get out of each other's orbit. And gay people often do that anyway because we're the only gay people in a given space. So if there's two,
that was this.
Well, yeah, so this is also kind of that, but I give it a little more like, I don't know. But with Levi and Nico, it really did feel like there was just, like the thing that would have made sense to talk about is how there were, for both of them, there was just kind of no other option, but they were not right together. And yeah, I mean, instead it just goes in really weird directions, and then Nico comes back and like it's like 6 months later and he fully has a baby and a...
How would you feel if I kept saying TK, 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 and it wasn't about you? We have to move on.
Yeah, true. I get it. We're done. We're out of here.
I mean, this show has moved on. To just, even touch on that first. It was good. He'll be missed. But this is one of the crazy things about Grey's Anatomy, where he was on for 7 freaking years. That is an entire normal length of time for a TV show to run. So, yes. Jake Pirelli leaving, being written out, whatever you want to call it, it's not unrealistic.
That's
Unfortunately,
11 of Andrea Anders shows.
And yeah, no, I mean, it's joke, but like also really. And unfortunately, the same thing can be said for the decisions they made for Yasuda in so many ways. Not all of the interns can survive. That's literally the nature of, they are interns. They have turnover. Things happen to them. Tragedies happen to the interns, and that's part of the story. I think part of what makes it difficult is the remaining interns, like Adams, just aren't as interesting as Yasuda.
It to me is particularly weird because the vibe I get from the way they're talking about it in the press was that it was decided that she wasn't working out and not that she left or asked to be let out of her contract because she had something else going on. And the only, either she has to be insanely difficult and just everybody's being cool about not talking about that, or I genuinely don't get what the writers are doing, because she is, to me, the best of the intern. Like, she's the one I really, at the start of it, I was rooting for Griffith. And I really felt like, I still feel like that actor has Ellen Paowan strength and could really lead the show and like be the focal character. They are writing her like shit. They really have fallen way too into this romance storyline. And I've told you guys my pitch. Like, I actually like the idea of the new Meredith Grey having her romance storyline be with another intern, but having them be like Christina and Meredith in that way, where they love each other so much, but they're insanely competitive. Occasionally it can get toxic. And instead the two of them are just like kind of pathetic, really cute. I love them. They're both gorgeous.
Veronica Logan syndrome.
Yeah. Well, Veronica and Logan at least had the thing of like, they were both really cool and the tension between them was really hot until they got together.
I kind of feel that way here, except
well, I don't think we had enough time. They were together by the end of their first season, so we didn't really get that time with them together, and nothing happened. The Veronica and Logan, like they're
by the end of their first season.
Second season, really.
But they're together at the end of the first one. That's the whole thing. They make out when his mom.
Yeah.
They're like, dating.
Yeah, he's like nothing sexier than my mom falling off a bridge.
But they also like their first year, like the end of their first year that we see them together. One of them ends up trapped in a freezer, about to get murdered, and these two don't.
The other's dad.
And these two don't do a fucking thing for they just do dumb medical stuff. Like they have no.
There was one flirtatious moment in that episode with the viral videos, and then since then it was nothing until immediately this season. Yeah.
Well, and I was talking about Adams and Griffith, but these two also. I'll get to them. I'll get to them in a second. Adams and Griffith just really don't. I love their chemistry. I think they are a great couple. I have great pitches for them, but they're just kind of, the writers are really blowing it with them. And in the meantime,
I would like to see get a better storyline. Just for the record, Quan doesn't get enough.
Yeah, I fully agree. Although, I think this storyline that he just has coming, that is just starting now, while I find it weird, is eventful and interesting to me, and it's unique and something.
I either want her to piss on the couch or to go full swim fan.
We'll get there. Adelaide, I keep calling her Adelaide. I know that's not her name on the show. Millie. It's a really
Julia. I remember it really easily.
A really good character, but I just don't. They're not doing much with her. And so finally we get to Yasuda. And Yasuda's just great all the way through. She's like a weird little like trash panda with her like weird van life living, and she fucks Hellmouth, and
what a step down to Millen, no offense.
She just seems to have so much going on. And I love the way they write her. She feels like the only one who's hungry. In the way that they wrote the original 5 as being so hungry in a way that in and of itself was like kind of toxic. But it leads to Christina becoming Christina. It leads to everything happening for them. And I think if nobody's hungry, nothing happens. And just they've tried. There's no magic. The acronym for the first names of all the people, just so everybody knows. And they've tried to recreate the hunger with other groups, and they've just never matched it. I think they got close with Joe's intern group, but they all just kind of kept getting killed.
No, they were also,
which is a different problem.
They were a morality play. They were horrible people. They either murdered someone or died. There's like, Grey's works in 2 modes. It's either really great characters in terrible situations or really great situations with terrible people.
Yeah.
And Joe's whole group was great situations, cutting edge writing, and horrible characters, to the point where I'm like, I can't believe Joe is the one who seems to guarantee to survive this episode. Ugh.
I mean, it's such a bummer because Jerrica Hinton, to me, was the original person that I was like, oh, Ellen Pompeo can retire now. Jerrica has this. She is so compelling and so cool, and the character was great. She did have that sort of challenged morality. She was very hungry, and she would be toxic from time to time, but she was also really great. She and Joe were really competitive. I also thought Leah was a better version of what you got from Izzy. And
Leah had something that I feel like very few people on this show had. Everybody on this show, even Karev, who we're told is dumb, always has that Lorelai Gilmore, I'm ready with a line. And Leah was just always like, I'm dumbfounded at the things you do, and my line is being human and not knowing how to handle you people. And we haven't really had a human intern in a really long time like Leah.
Also, I loved that her buzzkill status was based on wanting the hospital to be a healthy, functioning place.
Yeah, that was such an interesting story.
Some of us have friends.
Izzy was a buzzkill because she was a dork that constantly was trying to get them to do dorky stuff, which ended up being very sweet. Like you kind of hated the character, but also it was charming.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot.
Lizzie is my least favorite. Izzy is my least favorite character in the whole show.
She's right up there for me.
Least Izzy came out to Lizzie.
But go for it.
I just feel like of this new magic of these 5, the most dynamic and interesting ones have been the 3 in the middle, and the bookends were given the potential, the foundation, the story to be more interesting and dynamic in ways they haven't used. Griffith just mentioned again that her mom died before she was born. I feel like all of the stuff of her backstory being that her mom died in this hospital has not really come to anything. And I feel like Adams, half the time, it feels like he doesn't even want to fucking be here. And especially because he's supposed to be our shepherd, it feels so weird that those 2, I think, are the ones that they felt were supposed to be the most dynamic. But now we're down one of the 3 that truly were.
Yeah, Adams has been such a flop, unfortunately. As for one thing, right now it's weird how poorly all the men are functioning as characters.
When they have dialogue, like Link doesn't get any.
Yeah,
except Dad stuff.
It's actually Link is kind of the weird exception, but it's still a problem because Joe is being terrible, but it's like kind of with a reason, and like you get her having the conversation with Amelia about it, so you really get where she's coming from, and Link knows where she's coming from too, but they just keep like sniping at each other, and it's not fun or cute, and he doesn't come off good. But we lost Levi. Ndugu and Owen are like the 2 lead males besides Richard, and they're just both terrible. Like
they are aggressively bad. They are making a woman wear a cravat in Disney World in 90-degree heat.
Well, because one of the other male leads we don't know what to do with again yet. They just can't figure out how to shove Ben back in.
Also sort of terrible. Like this episode especially really bad. It's sort of fun when the idea is that like Sophia Bush, Nico do be buzzing over there. Sophia Bush talks about the fact. I have to know what's going on.
I muted him. We'll find out.
Sophia Bush talks about the fact that she and Kim Raver in the elevator talk about the fact that like they are in a male dominated field and they feel like all the men don't listen to them, and in and of itself, like that is a really valid and important storyline, and it's really important that like even the men that we might love have that problem, but it's sort of going beyond. Like Owen not listening to Teddy is like a great example. Ben not listening to Teddy, great example. She is the chief, like that should be really straightforward, but the fact that they have no redeeming qualities or storylines in a given episode makes it a little tough to watch basically all of the men.
The only thing I would give Ben, like, I really did feel him in that moment where he was like, you told me to be a first responder, and being like, well, now I'm saying not to. That's not really great. That's not really great handling of him, what she was asking for from him. But I think it even especially speaks to them not knowing what to do with him right now. How you doing, bud?
So sorry, I had a disaster episode.
Apparently. Was it the hackers? Did they come back?
No, the spider came back.
Come back. Different disaster.
No, a fan that runs in the room just started buzzing really loudly, and it was terrible.
A fan ran into the room and began buzzing loudly. I am so sorry. Please respect our privacy.
This is how Ellen Pompeo.
This is how she felt about Denzel. She said, "This is our house." But yeah, no, It's tough, especially because Ben is a character with such history, and I love screaming at the TV, keep the clipboards away from him. You know, is Ben wilding out? Is Ben being mistreated? He plays both sides of this so much over the last 15 years that it's hard for us to tell. Are we supposed to be sympathetic, or is he wrong?
Well, and on that, I think one of the things that's so interesting is Ben and Amelia are two of the leads, and they're from Station 19 and Private Practice.
Essentially, yeah.
And because, like, Ben was a character, but Ben was Miranda's fuck up for the first few seasons. Gorgeous man, incredible actor, well-developed character who was basically an idiot. Like, I mean, when he wasn't messing something up, he was putting people's lives in danger. Like, they wrote him like, I think they were trying to give us another take on a Meredith, where, like, you never know what Meredith's going to do. She's a loose cannon. But I think to Kevo's point, Meredith never went wild with a clipboard. So it's tough. I actually thought this was interesting because we made a lot of comments about how it feels like there's 4 shows. What did Miranda do here but be in Yasuda's story? I feel like for the most part, we've gotten a lot of, like, Miranda is the lifeblood of the hospital stories. But the way she had to say goodbye to Levi last week and the way she had to say goodbye to Yasuda this week, I'm of the mind that she and Richard cannot possibly leave at the end of the season, assuming the show keeps going. But I don't know who's gonna go. I mean, it really needs to be Miranda. I mean, Miranda really needs to stay. Richard is reaching an age where I'm kind of like, it's not that I think all old surgeons need to retire, but they've basically had him look at a person's insides and go, this is my favorite edition of Candyland, and, like, just start moving the pieces to Queen Frostine's home. So, like, I don't know that he's still ready to do surgery.
Has it always looked like this? Oh, God.
I think he should be a recurring, like, he needs to go work for the Fox Foundation. He needs to not be in the hospital anymore, but still show up. I mean, like, Debbie Allen is such an amazing character because she has this age and dignity and power that sort of seems mythic because she's not always there. And the whole point of Richard from the start of the show was kind of that. Look at her. I mean, she wears a fucking cape. The whole point of Richard from the start of the show was exactly that. It was that he was, he was the chief. He was kind of untouchable to them. And it was fascinating going through the years of him becoming a surrogate father to Meredith, and part of the mythos of the show being his status as this kind of bigger, mysterious figure who had this past that none of them could touch or go back to. They couldn't be there to sort of know young Ellis Gray.
It was magic that Derek had this weird insight into.
Yeah. And once they all are at about the same status as employees at the hospital, like, all he has is more experience and seniority, and it's great, but it gets into tropism of, like, the wise old black man, and they obviously try and move away from that, but it's sort of impossible to do without giving him a better or like a more appropriate job. And it just seems like if Jackson and Catherine can both sort of come back to the show every now and then to be insanely powerful and, like, wise beyond not just their years, but beyond the status of them as characters on the show, that sort of should have been his thing since about season 11.
But then they had to write Derek out, so they had to keep the only other men.
It's part that, and it's part of, no offense to Joe, who I feel like is showing up to work and barely pronouncing her words anymore. But part of how you end up staying on a show like this for so long sometimes is, no, I'm good. I'm set. And we don't really feel the need to kill your characters. And we don't really feel the need to fire you from your job. It's one thing when it's fresher characters. But I don't know if or when Owen is ever going to leave if he doesn't feel like it. He directs. So he has a second job on the show. And I agree with everything we're saying story-wise, but part of the problem is he just doesn't want to leave the show, probably. And it's a tough decision to make for a person, especially when they've been on it for 20 years. And a lot of these people, if you are on Grey's Anatomy, it either propels you or this becomes who you are.
I mean, I would like maybe make him Jordan from Scrubs then, where he inexplicably is the president of the board and is at the hospital all day, even though the board should only be meeting like at most once a month.
Constantly getting plastic surgery.
You know, I would give him a different job. I do think like, and not even in like a he's too old to do surgery way, because I don't know how that works in the real medical field. But like this character
has gone so far.
Yeah, because he was already past all of them when the show started, and now it's 20 years later, and we've done, like, the whole point is he was ready to retire because he had done all the stuff, and they were just getting started doing all the stuff, and then they gave him 20 years of stuff to do, which, like, now it's not so much, because the thing is, what we know now is that, like, retirement, as we have thought of it in these last 3 generations, is really kind of a myth. Like, you don't turn 55 and walk off into the sunset. Like,
my dad works more retired than he ever worked.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Demi Moore is hotter than she's ever been. She's like 85. Like, you know, people live these fascinating lives after the age at which we think they become completely irrelevant. So I'm not saying that they should need to put him on the ice floe and just say goodbye forever. I'm saying I don't believe that this is his interesting post-70 life where he is still doing surgeries that he's done before, like coaxing interns that have stupid problems. He should graduate.
Like, and the thing is, there are so many directions they could take his story, and that even though radical with everything they've done throughout the series, wouldn't really be that radical. If it wasn't for his history with alcoholism, I wouldn't find it that bizarre if he just taught part-time and bartended at Joe's part-time. That would be a great role for that type of mentor figure. It doesn't work for him personally, but he could work more at the clinic. There are so many things they could do with his character when they've already done so many stories of him feeling like he's failing. And you're right, when we started this back in June, I laughed because I had forgotten that the very beginning of the show, what a giant meal they make of Richard is retiring and Derek is gunning for his job, and it's Derek versus Mark, and all of that stuff. Watching the first few seasons on fast forward, knowing Derek is going to for 11 seasons, man, and Richard is still here. So it's really wild to think that they're still pushing it.
One of the things that I think is so crazy about that is we're talking about different generations of television. And if you just like want a little peek into what we're talking about with different generations of television, also, all of the comments just appeared for me at once. Hey, Andrew. I think about Episodes, the brilliant TV show, where they say that there's a lot of things. And like one of the things we all kind of say is, oh, what's the gimmick? When a new show debuts, we all automatically say, what's the gimmick? But they literally say that no network is picking up shows with gimmicks anymore because the gimmick is resolved by the end of the first episode and no one will ever come back for it. If Grey's Anatomy were produced today, Richard would decide not to retire in the first episode. He would put it off till the end of the year, and then at the end of the first season, cancel his retirement party. It would never be this protract, because one of the things this has done that would never be allowed now, first of all, he would be trend out of his mind. He would be so fucking swole that he could be Sullivan on a Marvel show. He would be Sullivan, exactly.
On Station 19, yep.
He would be a big, beefy king, and they would be pushing that into his 70s. They would be having, if this was the show designed now, which is one of the reasons that this show being a relic is fascinating. We don't have a lot of shows that represent the old guard. When Grey's Anatomy, Desperate Housewives, Lost, Veronica Mars, and more all debuted the same television season, it changed television forever. Nothing was the same. Serial television reprogrammed the world, and then 3 years later, the reality boom happened, thanks to the first writer's strike. So what you wound up with was shows grounded in realism and serialized storytelling versus shows where all you needed to know was everybody's a bitch and no husband is faithful and just have a day with it. And that this has weathered all of that to an age of remarkable intelligence in programming when possible. Shows like Silo and Beacon 23. It's just fascinating to think how these characters have evolved and aged.
And thank you for ending on the word aged, because something to keep in consideration for this as well. You're talking about how television has aged, how things are different from when this started to where it is now. And I looked it up to check, and James Pickens Jr. is 70. So when this started, he was 50. And the 49. Difference... Well, no, he just turned 70, so he was 50 when the show started.
Oh, I meant when the pilot was produced, assuming it was produced in the May, yeah.
Probably. But the difference between 49 and 50 then versus now, I think of the fact that Hot in Cleveland started in 2010. And those women are the age that the Golden Girls were. And that's the point of that show, is to illustrate how different those women were treated in the 80s versus the way they were then treated in the 2010s. And the way that this man would have treated retirement at 50 in 2005 is so different than the way the workforce is today. But then how do we reconcile that for this character who has been around for almost too long doing the same thing?
Bob Iger deformed retirement for the rest of us. So
there is that.
One of the things that I think is really interesting in talking about all of this is that we're talking about a duality of ideas, because one of the things that Grey's Anatomy attempts to do, even though it's kind of shaky sometimes, is they try to tie in real world medicine. They try to tie in real ideas in science and medicine and evolving practices in hospitals. And I do wonder if a 70-year-old surgeon who had repeatedly refused to learn new procedures, if a 70-year-old surgeon who had repeatedly had near mental breakdowns, huge medical crises, like, I'm not trying to be mean, but they literally tell you once you break a bone after 35, it doesn't heal the same way. And so, like, I have some feels about this. Also, Andrew, you have no idea what you're saying. Golden Girls is like literally my entire personality. So when you say RIP all the Golden Girls, you should follow it up with praise their name. But I feel very much like that was all a joke. No, not a joke. You should always praise them. But, I'm not sassing anyone. I really think that at the end of the day, Richard and Miranda are fascinating because I have yet to hear the phrase, "Isn't Miranda getting old?" And when we met her, she was definitely about 30. And now Mama's got to be in her 50s. And one of her sons, if not two of her sons, is reasonably ready to have grandchildren. Pick either, right? Could be old enough to have grandchildren for her. And I don't hear that Miranda's getting old. And the reason for that is because the Shondaland is the one place that women aren't treated like aging dogs put out to pasture on television lately, where the minute you hit 40, you're too ugly and old to be real. This is a show that praises its aging and makes women like Miranda Bailey the benchmark for what other shows should seek to do with women as they continue on for 21 years in a single role.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, but also, like, we are hitting the point with Miranda where, because Christina...
You hear that? She called him old. I said it backward. He called her old
first.
Because Christina and Meredith have both left to do really groundbreaking research, and because they've even found ways to say that Amelia's in on it too, because Miranda has done really groundbreaking research in the past, it is starting to be conspicuous that she, the brilliant teacher of all these other people who herself is capable of doing what they're doing, isn't doing it. And it feels weird that nobody in this writer's room that literally was like, this show is getting stale, I guess we have to have a sentient car. None of them can conceive of how to graduate Richard and Miranda, just as two examples. Other people too kind of deserve this, to something medically related, hospital related. They can still be on the show, but they're no longer babysitting kids and doing procedures that aren't necessary. Like, it would be fascinating if they started like an experimental surgery wing or something. I don't know if that's a real thing in a hospital, but like they should be doing only surgeries that nobody else could do because they're so experienced. If they need to still be on this show every week, if the decision is, you know, their contracts are there, they're great actors, they're consistent, we need them to be there. You guys have to, this writer's room, I have to believe, is capable of better ideas for why they're there that honor who the characters are. Yeah, Miranda is getting old, not to the point of retirement at all. And again, we have Debbie Allen as an example that she need not retire, that you can be this old and it's
I've
fine.
been surgerying penises since you weren't even aware of what a penis was yet.
That is exactly what she says. And I just can't, it's exhausting that we're not coming up with better options when this writer's room knows how to think outside the box.
You know, the first time I heard her say, now who wants to attach a penis? I was like, yes, this writer's room is not afraid of doing the things that, you know, sometimes are hard to do on TV. We still live in a world where it's not allowed to show, you know, networks aren't really allowed to show menstruation in red.
Yeah.
Because it's too real, but like, I don't know, that's like literally an unavoidable part of the life of 50% of people on this planet. So maybe shut up. And
it's genuinely why, like, more than anything, this mid-season disaster is why I need this to not be the last season of this show, because like it's a heat wave and there's a convenience store robbery, and also Owen is upset about cuckolding by women. This was our disaster. My least favorite disaster is still the hacker. That's how much I hated it. But this is like down there with the fog. And that was a season cliffhanger. This was just like, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, we can do better. This was... It didn't feel like they were giving it their best effort.
we're going to rename this the Altman-Owen Elevator, because this is where some shit went down like a plane. And we got to rename it for me, because I'm sad. It's hard to be Owen. Okay, first of all, I want to be clear.
This is him directing. This is director Kevin McKidd.
Kevin McKidd has a certain, and I like sexy Frankenstein energy that is like...
Oh, yeah.
When a guy is so like big, like, you know, I'm 6'1" and like I'm a big man, and like, you know, I'm 215, but like I'm not big like that, like in the way that I fill out a pair of scrubs. And like there's a certain thing that happens when you're so big, we just sort of write you off as an ogre man. And Owen manages to stay a human I don't like, a human I find flawed and difficult, and that is the credit of Kevin McKidd's excellent performance as a person I'm not crazy about. And that's something else Grace has given me. A lot of people I don't care for who are performed exquisitely. I kind of can't stand Ndugu and have not been able to for 2 seasons. But
I want to.
I love that actor so much. His performance is great. He's so handsome. He has such great chemistry with everybody he's in a scene with. But goddamn, that guy is just repulsive. He's been shown to regularly be a womanizer to the point where it's affecting his cases. And
he's such a prick to my sister Amelia.
Yeah, he is stressing me out despite being excellently acted, a beautiful man who is excellently written. It's just, you're basically writing a Hemingway character. Fuck yourself.
One, the problem is he started out so great. And I mean, it goes beyond the last 2 seasons. The last 2 seasons have been like intolerable, but it started with the end of his marriage. Like everything, it sucks that we lost Maggie, who was a fantastic character, and then he just started exhibiting behaviors that were unattractive, which, like, if that was the storyline that was needed to end the marriage and get Maggie off the show, whatever. but I would sort of expect some rehabbing of the character after that, and instead he's constantly unpleasant. He's rude to the interns. He's not a great teacher, and this is what I was talking about in terms of like, none of the men are good, and it's no longer this is a show that highlights women in a way that like male dominated fields have constantly had men being the best and women being like, oh God, isn't she annoying? Best example, watching it right now, The West Wing. It's a show about how President Bartlett and Leo McGarry are in love, and that bitch Abby just keeps ruining their fun.
Well, if I may, it's actually that neighborhood hag Abby keeps making sure that the two of them don't gay the country too hard.
Yeah,
they don't. This is
famed feminist and liberal Aaron Sorkin's best idea for like a very like good show that treats women really well, and they're just constantly like all the men are amazing and all of the women are amazing, but also the worst.
Well, and that's
Grey's women.
Well, I just want to say you're right, because the men are always flawed but brilliant, and the women are always smart but silly.
Yeah,
and that's not fair in any sense.
And Grey's sort of flips it a little bit in a way that is charming and is more just sort of like all like network TV is inherently going to be stupid because there's so much they can't do. So if you're going to stupid it, you might as well stupid it in favor of the women. And the women on Grey's Anatomy tend to just be better overall. They're more the focus of the show. They lead more interesting lives. They have more interesting thoughts. They behave less stupidly, and when they do behave stupidly, they swing back to the other extreme of being amazing. The men are on the whole a bigger mess, and that's always been something I enjoy, but now we're getting to a point where you're literally just writing people that I don't want to be on screen. It's not that I'm frustrated that a character I love is going through a dark time or doing something stupid. It's literally that Owen and Ndugu, who are two of the primary men, are unpleasant to be around. It is into the improv thing of like, okay, you ruined the scene because you didn't do yes and. You just said no to everything I said. And for these characters, it's just kind of like they're ruining every scene because all they are is unpleasant. They're not complicated or interesting. They're just weird and gross and boring and stupid. And while it's partially serving a purpose in the case of Owen, where it's clearly, you know, they're trying to write some marital strife, it's not working out that way, and I'm just like in love with seeing Teddy and Sophia Bush hang out and like be buddies and possibly be lovers, and I just hate Owen so much and don't ever want to watch any scene that he's in. I don't root for him. I don't care about his storylines. They're presenting him with a romantic potential challenger. Okay, don't care at all.
His disruptive film scene would be amazing.
100%. But we're not getting disruptive films. We're just getting this boring kind of rom-com, and he's like kind of the villain of that rom-com. I don't, you know, he's the Gaston. Like, I'm not rooting for him.
He's a
Here's the thing. I don't want to be an alarmist, but I can't help feeling like we lost Station 19 and our beloved Karina with her wife, Bishop, along with Travis. We have never had Helm as a series regular. Nope. We just lost Levi as a series regular. They just made a giant deal about new gay character Chaplin gone.
Yasuda, gay, gone.
Yasuda, gone. And now all of a sudden, the story is the focus of gay panic. And cuckolding and cheating and like, it's going to be 2025 soon, and I just don't know when straight people are going to be over cheating and cuckolding as a story. Plus, all of the queerness, all of the positive queerness has kind of really, really, really dried up. So having this really strife-filled queer story right now, feels like a very, very, very weird choice, especially from a show that for like so long now, 7 years now, has been so queer positive. And I'm trying not to react, see me smiling, but like, is it me? Is it me?
Can I riff?
Please. This
Levi,
hand.
Levi was not a great gay character.
No.
Levi was a great character who wound up gay.
Yes.
Yasuda was a great character whose gayness was subtextual. Like it was textual. There's no question, but her gayness didn't matter. Helm is so male coded, it's obscene. So Yasuda
from the beginning.
Yasuda being with Helm, who was male coded, where Levi was female coded, it automatically kind of made it non-threatening. So what this show had was a generation of characters that were gay in the way we all wanted to be gay. I love being a homosexual. I love being gay, and I love that I want to wear my Tom of Finland shirts. Like I'm proud of my culture, but I'm not defined by it, and I'm not limited by it. And for about a decade, we spent time in media trying to be like, gay people are human and normal, and you can fuck yourself. I'm not defined by my gayness. It is just a part of who I am. Make sure to write it into my stories, but don't make it my story. But now what we've reached is TV has gone around the other side, and sometimes what we wind up with is queer characters whose queerness only exists under the sheets and in no textual way above daylight. And so I think, oh my God, what a great example. Why can't I not think of her name? How much I love her, how great she is.
Tom Haverford's wife is all.
Yeah, Tom Haverford's hot wife. She is so great, and she is such a phenomenal addition. I hated her in her first season to the point where Kevo and I literally used to like bemoan when she would appear. Now we think she's incredible. And for me, I think what Grey's Anatomy is going to do is it's written out some characters that they felt were maybe beholden by earlier identifications and stereotypes. And I do hope that the next generation of queer characters are just everything we expect a modern queer character to be, which is multitudinous, not generic, so that the multitudinousness can be implied.
Well, and I think that actually is what we were getting with Yasuda and Millen, because it feels like Yasuda never identifies as queer or a lesbian, but exclusively on the show has relationships with two women, and Millen has a relationship with Yasuda and has sex with Quan, and
Link. But yeah,
does she have sex with Link?
Millen had a fling with Link right before their introduction at the beginning of season 19. It was meant to reflect Derek and Meredith, but like they totally didn't go anywhere. It's just she was an intern that slept with an attending. But like, yeah, they moved past it. Like they
blah blah blah.
So
COVID
her identity about other things. Yeah,
right. Yeah, totally forgot about that. But yeah, so she has had relationships with many people on the show, and
exactly.
It's her specific sexuality has never come up. But they go face first into all of these relationships. It really seemed at the beginning like they were putting Millen and Quan together and like really trying to push them as the Alex and Izzy, the alternative to the other big couple. And then they just kind of slowly backed away from it, and they found this chemistry between her and Yasuda, and that just happens again. And like, they never sit and have a conversation. What?
It's because Quan is the Izzy and Millen is the Alex.
Yeah, kind of.
That's why it didn't work. It's because she's aloof and cold and he's needy and obsessive, and we don't tolerate that from men or women. Oh God.
Oh yeah, no, Lonnie from the Descendants movies is going to be his Denny. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, she's gonna
Accident
die.
fiance.
The accident is gonna come back.
You cannot kill two Asian women who were horrifically injured in car accidents in one season like this.
I don't think she's gonna
please.
come back. I don't think she's gonna die. I think she's gonna be an Ava. I think you are right about that.
I think she's gonna piss on the couch. Okay.
I'm gonna
I think
piss
she-
on
I
the
do think
couch
she's
and go.
gonna-
Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, please, please.
I do think we're getting something like
It's the
that. But
same
yeah, so
house.
I mean, like, Yasuda and Millen have never discussed their sexuality. They never did that. You know, it was just when they got together, it was clear that they had chemistry, and the show went from there. And that's a really big thing from people being like, well, are you? I don't know what I am. I've always known, like, you're not
I
lesbian
know
enough
who
for me.
I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah, you're right. The last 10 years we did so much of that, where the gay character would always have to be like, I was scared in school, but then I came here. You know, we would do the same things over and over again, and now we are getting to a point where they just get into the relationship, and we don't really have to talk about how or why these two people are in a room together. So I mean, I think we're in a better place getting there, and I think Grace has always been on the curve with that stuff. I just, it's such a bummer that we lost this relationship, because it was the one I was really rooting for. And, the spoiler alert, everybody click away now if you don't want to know what happened at the end of this episode. But, Adams ostensibly got shot, and I just can't bring myself to care about if he were to die. The only reason I care about if he were to die is because I don't
Amelia.
not even Amelia, because I feel like Amelia would be like, oh, what a bummer.
She's traumatized by her father's
I guess
in a convenience store death.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're not going to do that storyline, because
That's purposely what they brought up in the convenience store.
No, I know they bring it up, but it's like lore.
I don't
like
think he'll die.
I don't think he's going to die, but I also, if this were 5 years ago even, but 10 years ago, she would be doing this, like, I mean, she would be doing the, like, Derek meltdown story where she's, she's just crying constantly. She's so emotional. You think she might go back to drinking. She's gonna be like, isn't it crazy that this is happening to me? But they're never going to give you like a really solid, Amelia might go off the wagon, write herself a bunch of prescriptions, and give birth to a baby with no brain.
What do we want?
Baby.
Drugs. And when do we want them?
No brain.
No brain.
No brain.
When you bring up Amelia, I genuinely think that the only reason they're torturing Wells is for Amelia. And that's why they show in the clip where they're like, Amelia, you have to come. It's an emergency. And she's like, whoever it is can wait. And then
I have to
they're like,
restart this heart first.
no, it's Wells. And she's like, what? And in the clip, there's this unbelievable bit of dialogue that I swear to God is going to emotionally affect me for maybe like the rest of my life. I really do identify with Meredith. I don't think she is the world's most perfect character or anything. And I don't know that I am exactly her, but there's a certain level of, I always think I am the main character. Like there's like a certain level of like protagonism syndrome that I suffer from as a real person, just putting it all on the table. And Meredith is such a great example of that, because Meredith is maybe the closest thing American TV has to a magical girl. And so she gains new powers, gets power-ups. She loses her abilities and then fights to get them back every season. There's a lore. There are places of power. She can transform and gain new abilities. So in that moment where she says to Richard, will you stop walking out on me? He takes this beat and then says, will you stop giving me reasons to walk out on you? And all I could think is that is literally something he would have said to Ellis. He is literally abusing his daughter for the sins of her mother. So much of his rage at Meredith is the ways she turned into her mother, because he handed her the blueprint. No one knew Ellis the way Richard did. So if anyone turned Meredith into Ellis, it is Richard. And that he is so mad at her for becoming the woman he turned her into. Well, I guess he really is her dad.
Nico's mad.
feel very
I mean,
particular about this.
It's a highly reflective view of a complex relationship, complex lore. This is what the show has built over time. And you're speaking to my point, which is I don't feel like we're going to get that level of setup and follow through when it comes to the fact that Amelia's family can't stop being fucked up in convenience stores. You're right, they do bring it up, but it really is kind of just like partway through writing the episode, one of the older staff members reminded everybody who is writing for the show but didn't watch the whole thing.
I don't know if you guys were here when Krista was here, but
that they've already established a horrible convenience store problem. And so rather than, there really was a lot of Meredith is her mother, Richard is Meredith's father figure, and so therefore sees his ex, or the object of his affection in his surrogate daughter, and is triggered. His frustrations are triggered when she behaves like Ellis. Like, everything you said is exactly correct, and there's so much complex lore that they can do that with basically anybody at any time, maybe even accidentally, as I think is kind of the case with this convenience store thing. But then what becomes so glaringly obvious is it can't just be a mention.
Yes.
In the dialogue. Like, now I do really want to see somebody talk about the fact that this family is prone to tragedy. Go ahead, Kevo.
And not just that, but I feel like what we are saying and what we are speaking to is hugely the failure of connecting Luke as a character and his connection to the Shepherd family, and the fact that this is the third season with these new interns, and we've treated it like a joke, but it's really not a joke that we have no idea who his mom is.
Yes.
It really isn't funny that we've never met his mom and that she hasn't been significant. Other than Amelia, the only connection that we really have that is telling us that he's a shepherd is him telling us he's a shepherd. And if he's supposed to be that important and significant, and stuff like this is supposed to be important and significant, where is Tyne Daly? Where is, I'm not joking that I kind of want us to start a campaign of, give us Luke's mom. Because, we kind of need to feel that for this to be important.
And I don't know if they've been holding off because they know that this show doesn't get canceled and they're worried what they're going to do in season 25, and they want to make sure they have it locked and loaded. But yeah, the idea, the storyline of has ADHD and is bad at this is not. This is the same thing as what I'm saying about Owen and Ndugu. It's good when men make mistakes and do bad things and need to be corrected, and we need to see. It's good when any character has that. It's good to have flawed characters. Owen and Ndugu are beyond flawed. They don't have any redeeming qualities at this point.
Other than Doctor.
Yeah, they don't have any. They haven't had interesting or redeeming storylines on the show. So when you do just not redeeming storylines, it's not. I don't enjoy when they come on screen, and we're getting there with Adams because he doesn't have redeeming Doctor qualities. I would love, and that's why I would love to see whoever his mother is, whether it's Amy Acker, Nev Campbell, or Miss Honey from Matilda. And I would love to see Tyne Daly. What I would love is to go really melodramatic with it. And again, the show is a sentient car, so we're allowed to do this. Somebody needs to come in and he should be the savior. Somebody needs to come in and be like, you are so brilliant. You are hamstrung by your own by your weaknesses, but you are smarter than your uncle Derek was. You have the potential to be one of the greatest doctors of all time. And then the ADHD is that's he really has to struggle to get there. But rather than doing the storyline where he and Amelia are constantly avoiding each other, and Amelia is just giving him like kind of just like advice that you give to everybody, which is just like, life's hard, you'll get through it.
Like with
It would be
Noogies, yeah.
it would be so much more interesting if she was like, I know you have an insanely high IQ and are brilliant, and shepherds are amazing people. All of us are doctors. I came to be better than Derek, and you could be better than me. Do better, prove it. Rather than like, because then everything, all of his stumbling blocks are like, oh, I want to see him become better than legendary character Derek Shepherd. I want to see him, do research that's going to make Meredith impressive. I don't really want to see him overcome ADHD to be a mediocre doctor that also would risk his own life in a situation where that liquor store isn't owned by that woman. Nobody is saved by you guys not just giving the robber money and letting him go. Insurance will pay for everything. You're dumber than I thought you were, that you tried to be a hero here.
All I was feeling and shouting the whole scene was, please don't get Joe shot. Please don't get Joe shot. That's how unsympathetic you are, that I don't want you to get Joe hurt. Nico.
And if I can add to this, something that I think is really important is I'm damaged and I have mental illness. And I'm happy to talk to anybody privately about my mental illness.
I have ADHD, yeah.
My mental illness explains every way that I'm complicated. And I think that there is something to be said about the complications of a real person outside of anything that defines them. Beyond that, okay, Amelia must be as old as Derek was.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
For to be a child when he was there at the robbery, Amelia has now done more surgeries than Derek. Amelia has now done more life-changing, amazing surgeries than Derek. It would be Dr. Shepherd. It would be Dr. A. Shepherd, except it is Dr. Shepherd parenthesis F. And something the show never ever does is address the fact that Amelia is treated as a third stringer behind Derek and any male people he may have trained. We occasionally get somebody be like, oh, but you're Amelia Shepherd. The fact that people went, that was impossible. I think about having just watched the whole series. When Derek did the impossible, people would go, you did the impossible because you're Derek Shepherd. But when Amelia does the impossible, they go, I can't believe you did it. A woman did something other than had babies. And that is one way that the show has failed Amelia. Everybody treats it like she's done something groundbreaking when she's broken the same ground she's already broken. This surgery was not more impressive than any surgery she did under Karasik. But because she's a young woman, the idea is always reset her to a young new doctor. And that's bullshit.
I think you are seeing some examples of just the writing slipping through the cracks and them needing to do storylines that seem like they have stakes when they don't, when you're pointing out why they don't have stakes, because she's already done a more impressive surgery. They really were trying to put forth this idea that she wanted to be as good as Derek and then better than Derek. And then Derek died and they moved away from it. But I do think there was this intention back then of saying, well, she was basically at his level. And now, exactly as you said, it's been 12 years. She is, I think he's 12 years older than she is. So.
As recently as last season, they had her say, when somebody was like, well, I wanted to work with the amazing Dr. Shepherd. And she's like, I'm so sorry, my brother's dead. And they're like, no, I meant you. And she was like,
yeah.
But she's won more awards than him. I understand you're saying it's writing falling through the cracks, but I actually think it's misogyny because it's so consistent over 15 years that it's no longer writing falling through the cracks. If it falls through the cracks 5 times a season, it's misogyny.
And I even hear what you're saying, because part of what I was thinking about with Levi leaving at this point was the fact that he's been on 7 out of 21 seasons. That's a third of the whole series. How much of this show has Amelia been on, and how much of the show has she been on without Derek even being here? So I get what you're saying, where that being a well that they go to repeatedly, perhaps if they even just presented it a different way, shouldn't she at a certain point be used to and exhausted of it?
She should be exhausted.
And even feel conflicted about that because she loves her brother. And they kind of, did some stuff with, she still has a lot of feelings with that, with, I don't want to cure Alzheimer's because it proved Derek wrong. but that was a weird way to do. I still have feels about my dead brother. When there's this.
So I think it's complicated because I think there's things that go along with they gave Derek a younger sister, and younger is a key word here. But I think one of the things that's really complicated for me is, and I really do respect your feels that it's writing falling through the cracks. I just feel it falls through the cracks so consistently. It's resetting the character every time.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I think you could argue it's systemic misogyny. Because it is a very woman-dominated writer's room, which is why I called it slipping through the cracks, because this is a bunch of people that tend to pay attention to stuff like that. And the fact that we're still seeing it go down like this sort of leads me to believe, again, it's has more to do with like bad writing habits than anything. It's the stuff that they keep writing themselves into that they ought not to, that they should know better than to do. But it also, the fact that we don't see any of the other sisters or Tyne Daly, their mother, kind of also to me speaks to what we're lacking here. Like it would be so interesting to have them interact, given that this whole family gathered around this man, and like generationally men, because they can't stop talking about their father while Derek is alive, and Derek kind of then becomes the surrogate for their father because he is the man of the house now. We're doing very man of the house thing now. And even though we have this incredible roster of women, and don't get me wrong, Patrick Dempsey's great, but like you put Patrick Dempsey against Liv Tyler, to whom he was subservient and third string in the Scream franchise. You've got Tyne Daly, you've got Neve Campbell, you've got Amy Acker, and again, Miss Honey from Matilda. Those are the Shepherd women, and we're not, especially now that he's dead and Meredith Grey is gone, we're not seeing them at all. I know Amy Acker and Miss Honey are not taking roles at the level that they can't bid on them for Greys. I know those two would come back.
Right.
And like they're all doctors too. And one of my like top 5 episodes is when Link and Amelia go home and see her sisters, and they're so mean to her, and it is the funniest thing in the world. Amy Acker reads like a drag queen. They are the meanest people on earth, and it's so funny, but they're also really smart. They're both doctors themselves. They're also not like 100% wrong. They're being really, really mean, but like also what the audience never experiences, except for a very little bit in private practice that the family does, is like she put them through hell. She annoys the shit out of all of them. They have constantly been plagued by her addictions and her neuroses, and it's we don't touch any of that stuff once we lose Patrick Dempsey, and it seems like there couldn't be a better time to have it.
And again, the failing of Adams. I understand he was a child for a lot of it, but that is why this was a door to bring in the sisters, or even his dad, who we don't know anything about. You could fill in a lot of gaps for this character, even just by bringing in his dad, who's clearly going to end up being some kind of super hot fucking Latino daddy, who could also be a doctor or a psychologist or something.
I think we know it depends on who the mom is.
But someone who would have known Amelia during that drama, who would be another character to do all the things you're talking about and give us more and make Adams more, and instead we're not doing it.
I think that one of the things that's so interesting is the foil to what you're pointing out about Amelia and her sisters kind of having a point is Kepner. Kepner's sisters were wrong and horrible and just nightmares to her. And we're completely off base. And one of the things that Grey's has sought to do is never alienate any single group. I feel like sisters aren't bad in general. Look at how great the sister family of the Grey Shepherds are. So, like, you know, there's so many levels that we can dissect this. But one of the things that, like, I am the most thrown off about with this particular finale in regard to this new generation of interns and how they work with the older generation is, I swear, Griffiths and Kwan were only here to doubt Amelia. They provided nothing to this episode. Link provided nothing to this episode. In fact, if Owen hadn't been here to have a good time with Beckman and then have a Beckman
and then freak out
freak out about her in the elevator, I don't know that Owen had anything in this episode. And we're reaching a point where I understand how it's getting difficult to carry such a large cast. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's time to let people go. And there's people whom I don't want to lose them, like Miranda Bailey. I would not want to lose that character, but she is not just played by an actress, she's played by a producer. So every time she appears, it costs a lot of money. Chandra Wilson is like a force, and carrying her on the show is expensive.
I mean, there's absolutely no reckoning in this world with the double duty that Chandra Wilson played for 7 years between Grey's Anatomy and being in every third episode of Station 19. I'm not exaggerating. If I look it up, I think she's in like 60 or 70 episodes of the 105 episodes of Station 19. She has had more screen time and episodes in the last 7 to 8 years than any character in the entire franchise. It is wild. So that's also something to reckon with this character. How much story is there even left for poor Miranda here?
And that's even part of what we're talking about. When a show goes on for 21 years, what's left? You know, the X-Men will cycle a character out for 10, 15, and 20 years. And, you know, that's kind of like the best thing I can compare it to. I can't really compare it to Doctor Who because Doctor Who is science fiction, so characters can be 200 years old and come back. And while, yes, X-Men is science fiction, there are some grounding rules about like teenagers versus adults and life and death, and it's a little different. So with Grey's, I am at a place where I'm thrilled. I don't see it ending anytime soon. I think before they cancel Grey's Anatomy, it will become Grey's Anatomy, Grace Sloan Memorial over on Hulu for 8 episodes a year. I don't see this ending. I think I do see 4 or 5 people leaving the cast between this season and next so that Sophia Bush can join. But that has more to do with the fact that this cast is enormous. This is a 90210 cast. And I don't mean like the show. I mean, that's how many people are regulars.
Stop. You're not wrong about the size of the cast, as well as what I feel is the potential for this show. I am very surprised that this season is 18 episodes. When we come back, we have 10 remaining. I'm very surprised by that. I would have expected only 10 episodes for the season. I kind of would have expected shorter, and like you said, perhaps jumping over to Hulu or Disney Plus, depending on how streamers work by the time it happens, and doing something like that, especially because soaps are hard to kill. So many that were killed have been brought back as miniseries or new versions of themselves already. So, you know, and yeah, Andrew says there will be a ton of spinoffs. There's so much spinoff potential still for this. I miss the intersection with Station 19 already. I kind of wish we'd started a year earlier just to have that 1 year of, you know, even when it wasn't a full crossover so frequently because of how much Ben and Karina would jump between the shows, there was way more connectivity between this than there had been between Private Practice and Grey's. And that was so fun to watch. And I would love them to do a spinoff that's like that again, or something more like Private again. I think the potential for Addison just roaming around that countryside in her tank. Addison's abortion tank is rife for spin-off potential.
Oh, that's why the election went the way it did.
Oh my god, because of Addison and her tank. Yeah, she stole the response car from Station 19 and she's not giving it back. So yeah, I agree. If it ends, I'll be sad. I don't regret having caught up. I'm glad we caught up before it did end. But I think there is still, even at this point, so much more potential. At least as much as there's always been.
I really like your spitballing on like potential spinoffs. And Nico, your idea I think is my favorite because again, this is like we were talking about with comics. Like we don't have a lot of numbers when it comes to how the show does on streaming. All
we know it is the #1 streaming show in the world. That is all we know. That is the only fact we have.
But doesn't that include the previous? Like we don't know how those numbers
no, that specifically refers to the complete body of the show. So automatically there's 21 seasons of it, which means there's 2.1 times as much of it as Friends.
Right.
So we don't know how the adult shows where people
don't know how the current episodes are stacking up when it comes to like are people streaming these at the level that they're streaming seasons 1 and 2. So I would like to believe that they are, and I really like the idea of maybe pulling it off of broadcast and pulling the number down to like I think an 8 episode season on Hulu would be absolutely perfect. But then I really love the idea of like if you were going to do that with some of these newer characters and people who are really kind of a step removed from Meredith and the originals, maybe doing a show or like a Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life, where it's like four longer things, and it's just what's going on with all the old cast members, what's going on with Alex and Izzy, what's going on with Arizona and Callie, what's going on with Addison, and
absolutely,
yeah, and I mean. There's a ton of products available from the show. I'd just be very curious to know if the network is interested in doing that or if it's just kind of treading water with this show until it just doesn't make sense to do so anymore.
And we're also us, so I would even love to propose absolutely bonkers things considering what we are seeing in television these days, where I still can't get over the Big Bang to Young Sheldon to First Marriage pipeline, where if we had a sitcom called Joe's and it was set at the bar and it was mostly a different cast, but you had cast members from Grey's Anatomy coming in, sure, run with it. I think rife with potential this universe is, even after all this time.
I love the idea of treating it like a Cheers spinoff. I have no problem with Grey's getting a lower decks after 21 years. That totally works for me. It's been amazing. 21 years, 7 seasons of Station, 6 seasons of Private Practice. That brings us to 35 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. That is amazing. I have had such a great time watching through all of it. Generation after generation of character. This show has survived so much, so long, and frankly, I think it's better for getting away from the Izzies. I will miss the Callies, but that we have reached the Beckmans is great, and I'm very excited. I'm so glad we did this episode. I can't wait to see the future of Grey's Anatomy. I'm sure we're going to talk about it before it comes back March 3rd, but I want to put it out there. Kevo. 6th, March 6th. I'm going to watch it March 3rd. No big deal. I was invited to a premiere party at Shonda's house. It's no big deal. It's very cool there. We call it Shondaland. Anyway, Kevo, I would like to know which dangler you'd most like the resolution to and where everybody can find you.
The thing that I most want to just poof and go away is definitely Owen blowing his gasket over this. I don't care for this story, this concept, the fact that Owen keeps having these stories. I keep joking that he's going to choke the shit out of Brooke Davis, and Brooke Davis has already dealt with Psycho Derek, so she can take him. But no, seriously, I want this done. We joked Owen should just make out with her husband and it's fine. But you know what? Do that and I will be a lot less anxious about the shrinking queer quotient on this show. Like I've said, this has been so rewarding. I am so glad we did this, and I'm so glad that this is something that we've been able to share as the action pack and bring to our channel for content, because it is worthy of discussion. We love, silly dramas, and they are very defensible, and this one especially. I understand the people for whom the first few seasons was their seasons. But if you take a step back and think about this as being about the hospital rather than the core cast, it's in so many ways the same show that it's always been, just 20 years later. And I am excited to see if it's going to be another season, another 5, another 20. Owen will still be here, obviously. He and Richard are going to be fighting over who is super mega chief of surgery, and it's a silver coat and it's very shiny, and we'll be here covering it. And until then, you can find me on the socials at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. I see you guys, you waited and you did the head thing, so I was like, all right, fine.
TK, how about you?
Didn't mean to throw us off. Oh, you're muted, bud.
I'm
super muted.
You really spoke to the thing, Nico, that has always been like why I was able to stick with this show, which is it is kind of the closest thing on TV to comic books, in that it is serialized storytelling that has gone on forever, that has lore and legends and, has deaths. The one big thing, of course, that comics also has that this can never do is nobody ages. The creators age, but the characters, you just keep drawing them the age that you need them to be at the time, and you just keep saying they're that age. Unfortunately, that is not feasible with Meredith and co, but it's been amazing. I mean, like, just as you said, like changing the age of retirement over 20 years so that this man who was 50 and was like maybe out to pasture in 2005 is now 70 and is, the show certainly isn't talking about him going anywhere. And it just, like, despite the fact that they can't not age the characters, they figured out a way to really expand everybody's view of what characters and ages are, and, to deal with the real world aging of everybody in a way that remains compelling and keeps characters feeling, vital. So like I said, I love it in the same way that I love comic books, and like comics, I'm very, very critical because I read them all and I watched it all and I have all the lore and I have all the ideas. And if they just let me in the writer's room, I could do all the stuff that I want to do. Nico and I should just get to write Spider-Girl. We have a huge universe worth of plans, and we should just be allowed to do that. And because they're both owned by Marvel, Spider-Girl should get to appear at Gray Sloan Memorial. Listen, just let us do what we want to do. That is my thesis for today. And if you would like to discuss that with me, you can find me primarily at Blue Sky, a little bit on Instagram at TK Elemental. Nico, last words?
You guys can find me all over the internet at Nico Action. That's Blue Sky, Instagram, and more. You can check out my music at Nico Action Music, NICOACTION MUSIC. If you guys want to check out this amazing show, check it out at X is for Show, X is for Podcast, and more all over your socials. 3 things you guys could do for us. You guys could like, comment, and subscribe, but 3 things you guys could do for yourself. Number 1, we need you guys to stay safe. It is a crazy world out there. Number 2, be brave, because who you are is so important to us. That number 3, we need you to evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, amazing. Who you are today, we love it. But who you are tomorrow, that's the dream, and we cannot wait. So until then, you guys can check out, as Andrew says, all my thirst traps on Blue Sky, as well as all of us, and more here on YouTube at X is for Show. And until then, we'll see ya.